Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I'm your host Sean McGahee, and this is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. You can listen to Dayspring Discussions on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, Patreon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever, guys. While you're there, go and rate, review, subscribe, then head on over to the Facebook group and Twitter account and join the discussion. Well, hello everyone. It is a beautiful Monday morning here in Austin, Texas. Hope you guys had a great weekend, of course. Myself, I pretty much just worked. I worked Saturday and Sunday, and then I, went and watched some TV, watched a movie, which is going to be the main topic for today's episode. I finally went to the movie theater after 6 months, sat down and watched the newest and last of the Fox X-Men movies, New Mutants, so I'm going to talk about that. Also, in my spare time, I checked out COBRA KAI on Netflix, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. But first, we need to address the Panther in the room. Friday, it was announced that actor Chadwick Boseman died after a 4-year battle with colon cancer. This was pretty shocking to most of us, mainly because a lot of us had no idea he was even sick. Chadwick Boseman, of course, known best for playing T'Challa in Black Panther in the Marvel Studio films, also in films such as 42, 21 Bridges, Marshall, Gods of Egypt. He has a resume that is pretty distinguished. Not a long resume, not a big resume, but to me, he's been in some good roles, and it just kind of a shock because no one really knew he was sick. There was recent pictures I know where he was, losing weight, and some people in the media were even criticizing a little bit for it. But of course, they had no idea what was really going on with him. And I think the real takeaway from all this is that, he had been battling this cancer for several years, and battling it even as he was playing Black Panther. Playing this, pivotal role, doing these action scenes, all this stuff, I think because he really knew how important the role was. And for me, what I'm going to remember the actor most is when I look at his resume, are the ones that really stick out to me. He was in films like 42, Get On Up, Marshall, where he played Jackie Robinson, James Brown, Thurgood Marshall, really pivotal Black historical figures. And, I go to this Kevin Smith quote from the movie Dogma, where he said, "You people, if there's not a movie about it, it's not worth knowing, is it?" And we do have the mentality. We're kind of shallow like that. So to me, what Boseman wanted to do was show people these historical Black figures that meant something, like Jackie Robinson, James Brown, even Black Panther. Trying to bring these characters more to the forefront, so people are aware that they live, that they are there. And of course, for this show, playing the first live action version of the first Marvel Black character, I think was a very big step for him, and a very big step for all of us, because Black Panther got nominated for an Oscar. And for the most part, I don't know anyone who doesn't like the film. You can say it's not your favorite film, that's fine, but it is a fine film indeed. And of course, Boseman was the star of it, leading the way. It's just a sad tragedy when someone so young, who had so much left to give the world, passes away suddenly. But of course, for myself and for the geek community, the Marvel community, a lot of people are asking, what do they do now with Black Panther? And I think the real simple answer is just, recast. That's really what it is. They already have Black Panther 2 that was, ready to come out in a couple of years. I forget what the release date was for it, but I know it was already set. Even though, the script was still writing, I think Ryan Coogler was going to direct. This may delay that a little bit, but I think what you do is you you continue on, and that's what I think Boseman would want. Going back a couple of years, where I don't think it's a very similar scenario with the tragic passing of Carrie Fisher. She had been Princess Leia for decades, beloved by so many fans, and we had one film left, Episode 9, that they had to find a way to do, whether through movie magic of keeping her in there or recasting. I think they should have recasted, but that's a topic for another discussion. With Boseman, he'd only been in the role a couple of years, and while I think it's a pivotal role in the geek and superhero community, I think he would want it to go on. People are saying, "Oh no, they should retire the character of Black Panther." That's not what he would want. That's not what I think the character should do. You shouldn't take a character that is so pivotal and just put him aside because the actor playing him is gone. I mean, we have had many James Bonds and many Batmans, and no actor is bigger than the character, especially a character that means so much to so many people. And I think one of the reasons Boseman did this role and tried his best to play it even when he was sick was because he knew the importance of the character in the comic book community and even the Black community, at least from my perspective, what I think. So I don't think we need to put aside that character. I think we just need to recast and honor him by doing so. I think you could delay Black Panther 2, and I think they will until they find someone else. But it's just a tragedy, that someone who had so much to give passes away. So rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Wakanda forever. All right, guys, let's pick things up a bit here. So usually when I start off, after I give my what's up and what's going on, I like to go into a segment I call What's Got My Attention. So really, this segment is just kind of what I've been watching and, what's got my interest this week, what I've been reading and stuff like that. So there are several things that I've wanted to check out or have been checking out. One of them that I wanted to check out was the new Superman animated movie, Superman Man of Tomorrow. Came out digitally. It's going to come out on Blu-ray and on physical media, I think, next week. Well, after not watching it for a while, I finally sat down this morning and watched about 40 minutes of it or so. I haven't finished it yet, and to be honest, I don't know if I'm actually going to. Now, this is kind of the restart for DC Animation. Well, not really a restart, but the main focus of DC Animation the last couple of years has been their own animated cinematic universe, starting off with films like Justice League Flashpoint Paradox, and then ending this year with Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, which I really enjoyed the cinematic universe, honestly. But they saw that diminishing returns in the film sales were happening, so they decided to end the universe, which it's a business decision. Making movies, making television, making comic books is a business. So if you're losing money on it, you need to stop what you're doing and pivot, and that's what they did. So in that regard, even though as much as I loved it, I understand where they're coming from. So they're starting off with something new, a new Superman original take, not really based off anything. And I sat down, I watched it, or part of it, and I wasn't that impressed with it, to be honest. Just wasn't. Now, eventually I'm going to finish this, whether it's today, because I have the time for it, or whether it's next week when it comes out on physical media. But it's Superman. I'm a Superman fan. I'm going to finish watching it. But of the first half of the film I saw, I'm not impressed with it so far. But if you've seen it and you liked it, fire back, of course. Let me know if it gets any better. All right, so the main thing that I've been watching is Netflix Cobra Kai. Now, originally, this show was a YouTube original on their YouTube Red, I think is what it was. I don't know what went down. I know Netflix is invested and is making or has made a season 3. So to get ready for that, you've got the first 2 seasons up on Netflix that came out this weekend. And, I didn't want to pay for the YouTube subscription because I didn't think it was worth it. But, Cobra Kai, based off the film The Karate Kid, a spinoff, sequel, whatever you want to call it, I was interested in that because I love The Karate Kid. Not so much the newer one with Jackie Chan. I saw that in theaters. I didn't like it. But I went back Thursday and I watched the original Karate Kid, and then I watched part 2. There's a third one, and then you have the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank. Those two, not so much great. But the first two, I think, are real solid films that I really enjoy. So I enjoy the Karate Kid franchise. And I've seen the third one enough that I know, any references I'll get, which there were some references to the third film in this series. But the next Karate Kid, I maybe seen that once or twice and not a big fan. But it would be cool if Hilary Swank guest starred. That'd be cool. But anyway, I sat down, I finished season 1 last night. I watched the first episode of season 2, and I was so surprised how much I like this series. Part of it, I think, is because I am a fan of The Karate Kid, all the little references and Easter eggs. But really, I think the way they handle the characters, especially in the original film, Cobra Kai was the bad guys. And they're very one-dimensional, especially the teacher, John Kreese, just kind of like a mean guy. And then you had his student Johnny and his friends were bullying Daniel, and he had to fight them at the end, of course, learn karate from Mr. Miyagi, all that stuff. And while in that film, looking back on it now, you do see flashes of Johnny really, not being just a total bully where, his sensei told him to sweep the leg and he kind of hesitated. At the end of the film, he gives Daniel his trophy saying, "You're all right, LaRusso." So not a total bad guy. And this series picks up, of course, with, Johnny mainly. I mean, it's about Daniel as well, but kind of how the rivalry is still in place, but really it comes down to misunderstanding. And that's what I liked about this series so far is, you can see both these characters, Johnny and Daniel, actually are pretty good guys. And there's just a misunderstanding between them, between outside forces or outside characters that make them believe that they're each, not good guys. But we see it as the audience that they are. And I want Johnny to succeed just as much as I want Daniel to succeed. And that's, I think, what I really like about the series is that there's no real bad guys. So far, after season 1, the only bad guys I've seen in this series is the jerks who was picking on Miguel earlier in season 1, the bullies there, and Daniel's cousin's a little bit of a tool, and then also the friends of Robbie's, they're not great either. But our main characters, none of them are really bad guys in my eyes, and I really enjoy a show where you take those main characters and there is that rivalry there. You understand it, you see what happens, and like there's one part in season 1 where you think Johnny and Daniel are going to bury the hatchet, but they don't, and it gets worse from then on out. But I've enjoyed season 1. I'm looking forward to finishing season 2 and then, of course, getting ready for season 3. But if you have watched Cobra Kai, fire back on the social media groups, Gmail account. Let me know what you think about it. Have you finished season 2? Are you excited for season 3? I want to hear your thoughts on Cobra Kai. Okay, guys, so now on to the main event. So Saturday night after work, I did something I haven't done in a long time, which is I went to the movies. South Park Meadows, Cinemark, my favorite theater around. I went in, I actually got some snacks, a thing of popcorn, cherry Coke, sat down in my favorite seat. Yes, I reserved my favorite seat in the theater, sat down to watch the New Mutants. And, it was an event is what it felt like, because not only has, the film itself been delayed several times, but, like I said, I used to go to the movies at least, maybe once a week or so, sometimes once every 2 weeks. I go to the movies probably more than the average Joe because, like I said, I'm a big movie guy. I love the experience of going to the movies. And as I sat down, the movie hadn't started yet, and I had my popcorn, I had my soda, and I was sitting in my seat and just watching the previews, and I realized how much I missed going to the movies. It was I didn't even care if the movie was bad. I'd heard bad things about it. I didn't care. Just sitting there watching a movie. I can't believe the movie popcorn too. I started eating it and I was like, oh my God, I miss this. I miss the movie theater popcorn because it's been so long since I had some. I was amazed. So the whole experience was great. The film itself, okay. So New Mutants, as for some of you don't know, it's had a long and sordid history. So the film originally was supposed to come out, when was it? 2018, April 13th, 2018, but was delayed back to February 19th, 2019 in order to conduct reshoots. Well, it turns out they didn't reshoot anything, but it was still pushed back to August 2nd, 2019, because it was right in the middle of the purchase of Disney purchasing Fox. Then it was pushed back again April 3rd, 2020 to make room for the release of X-Men Dark Phoenix. On March 12th, 2020, the film was set to come out, but of course, COVID happened. So what happened? It get pushed back again to August 28th, 2020, over 2 years originally from when the film was supposed to come out. So it has been a long and sordid road for the New Mutants, but it's finally here, it's finally among us, and it is the last of the Fox X-Men films. Of course, there have been many films. You can go online to Twitter. My handle, Slim Dayspring 12. I just did my Fox X-Men film rankings, and to be honest, this one falls somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's as bad as The Last Stand, Wolverine Origins, or Dark Phoenix, but it's nowhere near the quality of like a Deadpool, Days of Future Past, Logan. I'd put it, more towards the middle, honestly. But I walked into the film having kind of low expectations because of reviews were coming out. Of course, you heard about, reshoots and trouble with the story and all this other stuff. So maybe because I had the low expectations, I was so surprised that I enjoyed the film. Or again, I told, one of my friends, I was like, I'm an X-Men fan. And, if you do certain X-Men elements, you're going to get a thumbs up from me. Like X-Men Apocalypse, I always say that with X-Men Apocalypse, as a film, I understand people's problem with it. It's not a great film. But as an X-Men movie, it has a lot of X-Men staples that as an X-Men fan make me enjoy it more than the average Joe. And I think it was part of that in this film that allowed me to enjoy it perhaps more than some other people enjoyed the film. Now, just to let you know, guys, I do spoiler. This is a spoiler review, okay? Honestly, there's not anything big as far as spoilers in the story. There's no secret cameos or, post-credit scene or anything like that. So there's only maybe one actual plot twist in the film, besides from what you've seen on screen. So there's not really big. If you haven't seen the film, of course, I always recommend, go see the film, come back, then listen to what I have to say, because I don't want to try to give you an opinion. I want to share my opinion, and then we can discuss this online, on the Facebook group, on the Twitter account, dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com, wherever. That's what this is all about. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then, pause, go watch the movie, come back. And before I go on, if you're scared about going to your local cinema, let me just say my experience was great going to my local Cinemark. I think that all the theaters, they want the business. So they're going to take the necessary precautions, or are taking the necessary precautions, I think, to really try to get people to come in, to feel safe. When I bought my ticket online, as soon as I clicked my seat, it immediately X'd out the two seats to my left and to my right, of course, more than 6 feet, of course. When I got to the theater, there weren't a lot of people there. You could tell that, they weren't packing the theater, but everyone was spaced out enough, definitely, where it was definitely safe. As I was eating my popcorn and drinking my soda, I had my mask off most of the movie, to be honest, because I knew no one else was around me. I was eating and drinking, and I felt perfectly great, but, that's just me. But again, I think if you feel that, you don't want to go to the movies because you don't think it's going to be safe enough, that's your right. That's totally understandable. My wife wasn't quite sure, which is why she didn't go with me to this one. But let me tell you, I believe that the movie theaters themselves are taking necessary precautions because, again, they want the business and they're going to do what they have to keep everyone safe, to keep the business coming. Okay, so New Mutants. As an X-Men fan, there are a lot of X-Men books and a lot of X-Men teams. I mainly stick a lot to the main groups: Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Storm, Gambit, Rogue, those guys. Those are the '90s crew, and I grew up on '90s X-Men, so that's my team, so to speak. But this film had characters that I didn't know a lot about. Magic I knew, Cannonball I knew a little bit about Wolfbane, Sunspot. The character I knew the least about was Moonstar, actually, or Mirage, I think she's called in the comics. And she's the main character in this movie, but she was the one I knew the least about. So while, again, I consider myself an X-Men fan, I wasn't a big New Mutants guy, so I'm not as familiar with these characters as some of the X-Men characters. And honestly, I have not read the Demon Bear storyline that this is actually based off of, so I was coming at it pretty fresh. The director of the film, Josh Boone, who probably most notably directed The Fault in Our Stars with Shailene Woodley and Ansel Elgort, he directed the film, and he has said that he's a pretty big X-Men fan. I'm going to talk about kind of something like that later, but this film, honestly, it had what I wanted. It gave me more than what I expected I was going to get. And I love that, honestly, this is such a small film. Superhero films today, especially, the Marvel films, you have such grand adventures and, world at stake kind of crisis going on. But the whole film was six, it was the 5 kids and it was Dr. Reyes. And that pretty much was the whole film. And it all took place within one location inside the school, the asylum, or whatever you want to call it. So I enjoyed that it was, really a small cast, that you really got to spend time with them, getting to know them. Of the cast, I was, a little, what I want to say, skeptical as far as if they could pull it off, because this cast, what I love about it is it's such a diverse cast of characters, okay? Wolfbane is Scottish. Illyana's Russian. Sunspot's Brazilian. Cannonball is Southern, from Kentucky. And then you have Moonstar, who is, Native American. So Wolfbane, Illyana, Cannonball, they, definitely had to have some kind of accent to them, which wasn't their native accent. Charlie Hunnam is English, and I think he does a great Southern accent. What's her name? Anya Taylor-Joy. The Russian's a little iffy, it's not great. And same thing goes for Macy Williams as a Scottish. Those weren't great. I thought Charlie Hunnam did a great job. Out of all of them, I was most impressed with Charlie Hunnam in the accent part of it all, and just the diversity of the cast I think was really great. Again, telling a small story. The sad part is that the weakest of the actors is the main actress herself. Blue Hunt is her name, and I can see where that kind of falters the story and the film a little bit, given that your lead is the weakest of all the characters, of all the actors. But I think a lot of them picked up the slack. Like I said, Cannonball, Sam in the movie, I loved his storyline. I loved his character. Of course, I'm a fan of the character in the comics too, which is why I gravitated more towards him. But I really enjoyed what he brought. You got to see kind of inside all their heads and what they were afraid of and why they were there. And of course, who brought them there, which is, what I really want to talk about. Kind of the twist, if at all, is Moonstar wakes up. She's in this place with all these kids that have manifested powers and killed people because they couldn't control their powers. And they're there to learn to control their powers. Dr. Reyes is trying to help them. And she keeps saying that she's working for someone and that if, they do good, they can, move up and, go work for her boss. And the kids are kind of assuming, and even the audience, we are assuming that she's talking about Professor X and the X-Men is what it is, mainly because this is an X-Men film. These are X-Men characters. Even Dr. Reyes herself is a character or a member of X-Men is what we assume. But come to find out, halfway through the film, there's a little logo that says Essex Corporation or Essex Foundation. I forget what it says, but referencing Nathan Essex, a.k.a. Mr. Sinister. So, Dr. Reyes, not working for Professor X, she's working for Mr. Sinister, and she's seeing if these kids can be trained killers for Mr. Sinister is what it comes down to. And as much as that revelation got to me, one thing that I thought about, of course, as soon as I saw that too, was the changing of the release dates. Because remember, this film was supposed to come out in 2018 before X-Men Dark Phoenix. And one criticism I've had with Dark Phoenix, or really the sequel to Apocalypse, is the post-credit scene in X-Men Apocalypse is kind of gives a nod to Mr. Sinister, because on the briefcase that collects Wolverine's vials or whatever the genetic material, it says Essex Corporation or Essex, somewhere in there. That's what it says. And of course, again, the nod to Mr. Sinister. So I thought the next X-Men film would be Mr. Sinister, but instead they did Dark Phoenix. And then when I saw that in this film, I realized that, given the fact that New Mutants was supposed to be, the film that comes out before Dark Phoenix, that X-Men Apocalypse post-credit scene wasn't teasing the next X-Men film. It was really teasing New Mutants. Now, I also thought it might be teasing Logan, of course, with X-23, cloning, all that stuff. But, to me, the way I see it is that they were teasing New Mutants, where he was, training, collecting mutants to be killers. And Dr. Reyes was working for him, which doesn't really fit the MO of the character, but she's the type of character, she wouldn't do that, in the comics, but her powers lent itself to the story, and I didn't mind it too much. I mean, some people might. There are other things that people worried about this film, which I'll get into in just a sec. But overall, yes, I did enjoy the film. It's not great. But it's enjoyable. I mean, God, I saw, Cannonball do his thing. I saw Magic pull out the Soul Sword. I saw Lockheed. Oh, my God. When I saw Lockheed, I was flipping out so hard. I got to have myself a little Lockheed. I want a little stuffed Lockheed. It's true. I want it now so bad. I got to have it. So that was great. You saw Sunspot. Everyone do their powers. It was, what, as an X-Men fan, what I wanted to see. Seeing it all live action up there. And again, the fact that it was, such a small film, minimal characters, minimal locations. Really, it was personal. They were fighting for themselves and not for the fate of the world. Is something that was different compared to a lot of other superhero films that we've gotten. And Fox always did that, at least within the last couple of years, where the X-Men films were very mainstream. With Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix and all that, but they took chances I don't think other studios would take with the properties, such as Deadpool as kind of a comedic rated R satire, as Logan in, kind of a Western style, again, violent, personal story. And then with this one where they tried to have kind of that horror slant to it, even though, I'm not a big horror guy, but, I could feel they were trying to make it very horrific, I guess you could say. But I think if you were a fan of horror films, you wouldn't be as impressed with this. I understand that, but I think if you were, a teenager, I think you would get a lot out of this film than, say, like I said, an adult who's used to watching and has an affinity for horror films. I've heard critics say that some of the character plot lines and backstories are a little weak. Maybe not the best, it's true, but I think they dove in quite a bit for the time frame they had and what they had to work with. I enjoyed the film, is what it is. And the fact that this film not only had so many difficulties in trying to be released, but also kind of behind the scenes stuff makes me really want to buy the Blu-ray. I want to buy the Blu-ray. I want to see the special features. It's said that John Hamm was actually cast as Mr. Sinister. And as soon as I saw the Essex Corporation logo, I really hoped we were going to see Mr. Sinister in this film because he's a great X-Men character. We have not seen live action yet, which I am severely disappointed about. But I thought we were going to see him. John Hamm apparently was cast. I think he actually did a part. What does this say here? On IMDb, it says, though his role was reportedly been cut from the film as a result of an extensive reshoot process that is changing elements of the film. So, I don't think he ever shot anything, but he was cast. That would have been cool. But I'm most fascinated with, the behind the scenes stuff with this film. I want to hear the story. I want to hear all about making this movie. Josh Boone said he had a trilogy planned. He was going to put Warlock in the next one. It was a film that I'm very interested to learn more about and what would have happened with it all, especially the Sinister angle, because before I learned about the Essex Corporation, I was trying to think of where Dr. Reyes' pin comes from because I was looking for Easter eggs. And I was like, what is that pin? What's that pin? And after you learn about the Essex Corporation, you get a closer look at the pin and you realize it's like Mr. Sinister's diamond he has on his forehead. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So I enjoyed that part. So, New Mutants. Not for everyone. It's not. I think there's some good stuff to it. Definitely, if you're looking for a film to get back into the theaters, maybe wait next weekend for Tenet. If you're looking for a grand specter, I'm going to see Tenet next weekend. I heard it's quite the film to see in theaters, so perhaps you could wait for DVD for New Mutants. But if you're a fan of X-Men, if you're a fan of the superhero genre, if you're looking for something different besides just a cookie-cutter superhero comic book film, I would recommend going and see New Mutants. I really would, honestly. It's one of those things, I don't have a desire to own Dark Phoenix or Deadpool 2 or some other X-Men films, but I do have a desire to own New Mutants when it comes out. So I'm definitely going to do that. Again, not saying it's for everyone, but I think it's okay. I've seen a lot worse in superhero and X-Men films, I'll tell you that. One thing I did miss, though, was at the beginning was, now that Fox is owned by Disney, you do have the logo. They changed the studio. It's not 20th Century Fox anymore. It's 20th Century Studios. So you saw the new logo first up, 20th Century Studios. And in the X-Men films, they would always linger when they fade out on the X in Fox. And you didn't get it in this film, and I was a little disappointed in that. All right, so before I kind of close out New Mutants and close out today's episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what's been going on with this movie as well. So Josh Boone made some comments a couple days ago in regards to the casting of Sunspot, Roberto. Now, the actor who plays him is, hold on, I'm going to pull up on my IMDb. The actor who plays him is Henry Zaga. So in this movie, like I said, there is a variety of ethnicities. You have Daniel Moonstar, who's Native American. Roberto da Costa is Brazilian. Ileana is Russian. Rain is Scottish. And then you have Dr. Cecilia Reyes, who is Puerto Rican, which in the comics, I thought she was just black because she's darker skinned. And she may be the mix of, Puerto Rican and black perhaps. But when I first saw her back in Operation Zero Tolerance, I assumed she was black. I had no idea. Besides her last name, of course, Reyes. I always saw her as more of a black character than a Latino character. But either way, people have kind of been up in arms about Josh Boone saying that in the comics, especially the character of Sunspot, when he first appeared, he was darker skinned. And there was a whole storyline between social context between darker skinned Brazilians and lighter skinned Brazilians, which, again, I'm not great familiar with the character history, so I don't know a lot about that. What I do know is that people are upset that people are saying that this film was whitewashed, that Cecilia Reyes was whitewashed, that Sunspot was whitewashed, that Daniel Moonstar was whitewashed. Why? Because the color of their skin wasn't dark enough. Not the fact that, they're actually got a Brazilian actor, a Native American actor, and a Puerto Rican actor, okay? Which is what the characters are. People are complaining because they got actors and actresses that didn't have skin that were dark enough to match the characters, which, by the way, look at the current comic books, or at least the last couple of years. Sunspot ain't as dark as he was when he first appeared in the comics. I'm sorry. But here's what I don't get, okay? And here's what drives me crazy, okay? Is Yes, I'm all about diversification. I really am. Now, what a filmmaker's job is to make the best movie possible. And how do they do that? By getting the best people to work at it, okay? So what Josh Boone did is he went out, they had a casting call, they said, hey, we got this part, we need a Brazilian actor, okay? We need a Native American female, we need a Puerto Rican female, we need these actors to do these parts because that's what the characters are. They went out, they got the best person for the role. That's what it was. They got the best Brazilian heritage actor they could, that auditioned for the parts, okay? And people are complaining that his skin's not dark enough. It boggles my mind. What is wrong with people when they talk about, I get it, but they went out and they got the best actors for the character, okay? That's what happened, okay? That's what they should do. That is their job, to give us the best product possible by giving us the best people to work at it and giving the best actors. They went out and they put a casting call for a female, Native American descent, auditions. And out of, I'm sure, the hundreds of people they saw at Blue Hunt was allegedly the best for the part. That's debatable, whatever, but that's who they thought they were going to go with. The co-creator of New Mutants has come out and said, well, her hair wasn't in a braid like in the comics, and, her skin wasn't dark enough. And his complaint, they didn't spell his name right in the credits, which is a legitimate complaint. The co-creator of the characters, and you can't get his name right in the credits, that's a legitimate complaint. But she doesn't have a braid? Oh my God. You're looking for things in this film to be wrong, and it's ridiculous, okay? It boggles my mind, people complaining about stuff like this, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on in this world these days, but I know it's kind of a weird note to end on, guys, but that's where I'm going to end the show. That's where I'm going to end my New Mutants discussion, guys, but time for you to fire back, okay? Let me know. Have you seen the New Mutants? What did you think? Again, I didn't think it was the greatest, but I thought it was decent. As an X-Men film, I was left satisfied with what I saw. So let me know if you were satisfied. Fire back. Facebook group, Twitter account, Dayspring Discussions at gmail.com. What do we got coming up this week? Tenet is coming out, of course. And then also Season 2 of The Boys on Amazon. I started my rewatch of Season 1 last night. I'm going to do about 2 episodes a day just to get caught up or to review The Boys because I love that show. Next weekend, I'm off because it's my wedding anniversary. Me and my wife going to go to a hotel for a couple nights, chill out, enjoy each other's company, celebrate being married for 11 blissful years. But also means we're going to be hanging out in the hotel, which means I'll have ample time to watch some Boys Season 2. So hopefully next week I can talk a little bit about that. I probably won't have seen Tenet by then. I'll talk about that later on when I can. But, I'll try to get through The Boys Season 2, and I can talk about that, among other things that I'm sure will come up. But if there's anything you want to talk about, guys, of course, Dayspring Discussions Facebook group, Twitter account, dayspringdiscussions at gmail.com. It's there for you guys. I post a lot of stuff there, and it's there to discuss, interact, and just enjoy people who love the geek culture just like you do. But that's it for me today, guys. As always, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, SlimDayspring12. Hope you guys have a good week, and until next time, may the Force be with us all.